Please welcome to the stage Frieda McAlear. She is going to be talking about the Women in Computing Collaborative, and she's from the Kapor Center for Social Impact. Please welcome her to the stage.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? All right, great. My name is Frieda McAlear. As Melinda just said, from the Kapor Center. I'm a senior research associate there, and I'm here to tell you a little bit about the Women of Color in Computing Research Collaborative this morning. So to get us started, a couple of things. One is I want to thank and honor the elders and ancestors of the Ohlone tribe, whose land and territories we're on today. So I just want to shout them out. We're in the village site of Yelamu, just in case you wanted to know what San Francisco used to be, and still is in terms of native sovereignty. So the other quick thing I wanted to ask or to find out is who here is a woman of color in tech? Can you raise your hands? Fantastic. Oh, big round of applause. Thank you so much for coming and showing out today. I'm going to talk a little bit about our collaborative in support of women of color in computing. So first of all, shout out to the wonderful women from Hidden Figures. This is Dorothy Vaughn, Katherine Johnson. We've got Christine Darden up here, Mary Jackson as well. We're going to talk a little bit about why women of color in computing. Why do we need to focus specifically on women of color in this space? We're going to also look at some data trends for women of color in computing, the tech entrepreneurship space in particular, as I believe there's a panel about this in a little bit. And we're going to talk a little bit about how you can get involved in the collaborative as well. So first of all, why should we focus on women of color in computing? There's a couple of big trends I want to draw your attention to. One is that the number of women of color in the US population is growing at a much faster rate than that of white women in the US. And as you know, by 2045, the majority of the US population will be folks of color. And we're looking at this trend already up to 2060 is the graph on the figure 2 part of the slide. So we have this huge and stark increase in women of color in the population. The second trend is that this slide didn't make it into the deck. Second trend is about how there are increasing racial wealth gaps in the US. Won't surprise anybody here to know that Black and Latinx households are about 10% or less of white American households in terms of their net worth. So this is another big reason why we're focusing on women of color in particular, that these racial wealth gaps are actually increasing. So this is something that you can tweet out. In higher education, we're looking at 3 different spaces for the data trends, right? Higher education, tech workforce, and entrepreneurship venture capital. Starting with higher education, there's just less than 7% of the bachelor's degree holders in the US who are Black, Latinx, and Native American women. That is a stark underrepresentation and disparity, and it gets slightly worse. In the tech workforce space, another tweetable, there are less than 2% of the workforce are Black, Latinx, or Native American women, and less than 1% of leadership positions are held by Black or Latinx women. So this is an even starker disparity, and you can look at this graph for all of its intersectional data that we compiled in a data brief for you. The next, of course, space, entrepreneurship and venture capital. The data here shows that just 17% of all startups are started by women, and only 4% of those 17% are women of African descent. So we're looking at an incredibly small space here. There are, of course, women of color founders, and I'm going to get to that in a second, but they're such a small percentage of not only the number of total founders who are women, but the amount of money that's raised for their businesses. So we did a survey. We wanted to find out more about this space. There's not a lot of data or intersectional data about women of color in entrepreneurship and venture capital. So we sent a survey out to female founders office hours and the Kapor Capital portfolio companies to learn a little bit more about their experiences working in the startup world. And so you see here on this graph, we've disaggregated. There were 54 respondents. We disaggregated according to 3 major categories. There's underrepresented women of color. This is the blue bars here. We have the orange bars, which are white women founders. And we have the gray bars, which are East and South Asian female founders. And they describe stark differences in their experiences according to their identities. So you can see here in the middle column, we've got being bullied. Apologies if the writing here is very small. Being bullied, you can see that the blue bar of underrepresented women of color is 75% of female founders of color. This is a huge and stark difference compared to just 22% of white women and no East and South Asian female founders reported being bullied. So there's a huge racial difference in the treatment of women of color startup founders, right? So this is a major reason why we're doing this work as well. We also, as part of our work at the Kapor Center, we fund startups. So we have a venture capital arm of the organization called Kapor Capital, and I encourage you to look up these amazing women of color founders and their companies for the amazing work that they're doing. So there are women of color in this space. I don't want you to get the impression that there aren't. And in fact, we're supporting some of the female founders of color. We've got Ana Roca Castro at Genius Plaza, based in Miami, Phaedra Ellis-Lampkins out here in the Bay Area, and Lisa Galopter from Techquitable, also here in the Bay Area. So please do, there's Laura Gomez from Antipica. There are a number of female founders that we wanted to share out and highlight their work for you this morning. They're doing phenomenal work in this space, considering all the previous graphs that you just saw. So why are we doing this Women of Color in Computing Research Collaborative? We don't know a lot about the intersectional experiences of women in computing, right? In terms of research and data, most data sets focus either just on racial difference or on gender difference, and very few take into account the intersection of those differences, right? And so having looked at the previous landscape data, you can see that there's quite a big disparity in how women of color experience and move through the tech space and in their careers. So we wanted to take a look at how we can develop, test, and scale strategies to increase participation of women of color in the tech ecosystem. And at those three stages: higher education, CS degrees, the tech workforce, and in entrepreneurship venture capital. So you can see here, Women of Color in Computing, WOCincomputing.org is our project website. It's a 2-year initiative. So we are moving fast. We just launched on August 1st. Yay for us launching. Check out the data brief online if you go to WOCincomputing.org. Our mission, of course, as I just mentioned, for researchers and practitioners to work together, because oftentimes research and evaluation practices are only shared in certain spaces. And what we're trying to do with this collaborative is really bring practitioners in diversity and inclusion and in higher education spaces, the counter spaces that have been developed for women of color. I know Arlen Hamilton's here. So we have all of these folks in the practitioner space, and we have researchers and evaluators. We want folks to work together to be able to test and scale these strategies and interventions. So ways that you can contribute to the collaborative, I'll just go through these super quickly. We have, and this is so exciting, we have a request for proposals that's out now. The deadline is on Monday, October 22nd. So there's still time to submit an application. If you are a practitioner in this space, if you're a researcher or evaluator in this space, please consider going out. We have 20K grants, one for each of the 3 stages of the ecosystem: higher education, tech workforce, and entrepreneurship venture capital. And we really need the data from all of these spaces. So please consider, if you can, putting through an application. WOCincomputing.org is where you can find the RFP. I've also linked up a bit.ly here. So if you want to take a picture of this slide, you'll get the bit.ly link for that RFP as well. Please also sign up for our newsletter. We're posting updates on a couple of times a year basis about the project and about the findings, the exciting findings that we're going to learn about women of color in this space. And then lastly, please do also advocate for women of color in computing. And with the last minute of my talk, I can tell you that I'm Native Alaskan, and I did my bachelor's in computer science. And I can tell you my experiences of going through the bachelor's degree process were enough to make me feel like I'm not sure if I'm going to be safe in the tech workforce, right? My experiences in those classrooms and with all of the professors and the dean of the department made me kind of realize that I would probably be best using that degree in another space. Hence, I'm a researcher for the Kapor Center studying the same issues that ended up promoting my choices in my career path. So just to let you know, this is also a personal story for me, and I hope that all of you can take from the materials that we provided on WOCincomputing.org, and also from conversations that you're having today and with each other, strategies that will help you support, validate, and encourage women of color to be in this space, to belong in this space, and to feel like they're a part of this space. Thank you so much for your time today.